The wreckage drifted through the Calorian nebula like broken teeth scattered across a black jaw. Leora Vex pressed her small hands against the cold viewport of the escape pod and watched the debris field rotate slowly in the void. She was 9 years old, 9 by the Velhari calendar, which made her roughly equivalent to a human child of 7. Her antennae lay flat against her skull. Her bioluminescent skin, usually a warm violet green, had faded to the gray of ash. Around her, the other survivors of the ISV Starfall, 14 Velhari refugees, 2 elderly Karanti traders, and a badly injured Mirati engineer, breathed shallow breaths in the recycled air. The escape pod had life support for perhaps 6 more hours. No one was coming. The hegemony patrol ships had destroyed the Starfall without warning, without declaration, without even opening a communication channel. They had simply fired. That was the hegemony way, efficient, cold, certain of its own authority over every corridor of the known galaxy. Leora's mother was still aboard the Starfall when it broke apart. She did not cry. There was no water left in her for tears. Instead, she searched. The pod's emergency beacon was broadcasting, but to whom? Velhari space was 3 light-years behind them. The nearest Karanti relay was destroyed. She'd watched it go dark an hour ago. There was only one other signal in range, and it sat on a frequency that the pod's AI labeled in dull amber text. Restricted, human sovereign territory, do not approach. Leora stared at the text for a long time. Every child in the galaxy knew about humans. The stories varied by species. The Karanti told cautionary tales about them, a young civilization, barely 2,000 years into space, already arguing with everyone. The Mirati called them Vioshara, the loud ones. The Velhari, who were more diplomatic, described humans as enthusiastic and unpredictable and left the rest unsaid. The hegemony, who had been ruling the known galaxy for 11,000 years, called them a temporary nuisance. Leora looked at the fading life support indicator. She looked at the old Karanti woman in the corner whose breathing had gone shallow and wrong. She looked at the 14 children and adults who had survived the destruction of everything they knew. Then she opened the restricted channel and spoke into it. "Hello," she said, in the clumsy, self-taught standard that her mother had always said would be useful someday. "My name is Leora Vex. I am 9 years old. The hegemony destroyed our ship. We have 6 hours of air. I do not know if anyone is listening. But if you are, please." She clicked off the transmitter. Around her, no one moved. The nebula turned its slow colors outside the viewport. 43 seconds later, the channel crackled back to life. "This is Admiral Darian Voss of the UES Unconquered Sunday. We received your signal, Leora Vex. Can you confirm your pod's transponder ID?" The voice was deep, unhurried, the voice of someone accustomed to large rooms and difficult decisions. Leora read off the code from the pod's display, her fingers trembling only slightly. "Confirmed. We have your position. Hold tight. We're coming." "You are far," Leora said. She had checked the signal distance. "The hegemony ships are still in the area. They will see you." A pause. When Admiral Voss spoke again, there was something in his voice she could not immediately name. It took her the rest of the rescue to understand it. The word she eventually settled on was amusement. Let them. The UES Unconquered Sun did not arrive quietly. It dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the debris field like a stone dropped into still water, except the stone was 4.2 kilometers long, massed at 890,000 tons, and carried enough armament to reduce a moon to slag. It came in dark, no running lights, engines cycling down from FTL burn with a sound that Leora felt in her bones even through the vacuum. Later, the hegemony reports would describe it as an unexpected asset deployment. Which was a very clean way of describing the moment that 3 hegemony patrol cruisers collectively decided they had somewhere else to be. They fled. Not retreated, fled. The distinction matters. The unconquered sun didn't chase them. It didn't need to. Instead, a tractor beam reached out from the warship with a gentleness that surprised everyone in the escape pod and drew them in. The hangar bay was enormous. Leora had grown up on Velhari stations, which were efficient and organized and somewhat sterile. The unconquered sun's hangar was organized too, but it had a different quality. There was something lived in about it, something purposeful in a way that felt almost aggressive. The equipment was not pretty. It was built to work. Humans met them at the hatch. They were taller than Leora had expected, and there were medics among them, moving fast, already triaging the injured Mirati engineer before the pod door had fully opened. A woman in a gray uniform crouched down to Leora's eye level and said, in careful Velhari, "Are you hurt?" Leora shook her head. "Good," the woman said, and her smile was a quick, warm thing. "The Admiral wants to meet you." Admiral Darian Voss was not what Leora had imagined. She had expected someone armored, severe, perhaps scarred. The stories made human military commanders sound like forces of nature in uniforms. Voss was simply a large man in his late 50s with gray at his temples, tired lines around his eyes, and hands that looked like they had done real work at some point in their lives. He stood at the bridge viewport with a cup of something hot, watching the debris field where the starfall had died. He turned when she entered. "Leora Vex," he said. His standard was unaccented, easy. "That was a brave thing you did." "It was the only thing," she said. He considered this. Sometimes that's what brave is. He gestured to the viewport. "The starfall, was your family aboard?" "My mother." He didn't offer her empty comfort. He simply nodded, once, and the acknowledgement carried a weight she appreciated. He had, she sensed, lost people too. "The hegemony will file a protest," Leora said. "We crossed into your territory. Technically, we violated the... They can file whatever they like." Voss set down his cup. "A child called for help on an open channel. I'm not in the business of ignoring that." "They are very powerful," Leora said. She wasn't challenging him. She was testing something. Voss looked at her for a moment, and then something shifted in his expression, not hardness, exactly. Certainty. "So are we," he said. "We're just newer at it. We haven't had time to forget what it felt like to need help." Leora's antennae rose slightly. She processed this. Outside the viewport, the unconquered sun had begun to move, not away from the debris field, but through it, positioning itself, as if it were making a statement to any sensor array still watching. "You are not leaving," she said. "Not yet." Voss picked up his cup again. "Galactic law says ships may remain in contested zones for up to 72 hours during a rescue operation. We're in a rescue operation." He glanced at her. "Could take a while. A lot of debris to document. Evidence of what happened here." Leora understood then. He was not simply rescuing them. He was witnessing. And the unconquered sun was the witness, 4.2 kilometers of it, undeniable, broadcasting on every frequency, logging everything, positioning itself so that every surviving satellite and relay station in range would have its silhouette on record. So that no one could pretend this hadn't happened. The hegemony had been erasing things for 11,000 years. It had not, until recently, had to deal with a species that showed up, parked a warship in the middle of the erasure, and started taking notes. The formal incident report filed 6 days later by Hegemony Ambassador Torvilen included the phrase, "an escalatory and destabilizing presence." The human diplomatic response was 3 sentences long. "We recovered 17 survivors from a vessel destroyed without provocation in open space. We have provided full sensor and documentary records to the Galactic Court. We will continue to respond to distress calls regardless of territorial designation." In the diplomatic lounges of a dozen species' home worlds, the message was analyzed, debated, and discussed. The Coranti called it reckless. The Mirati called it unprecedented. The Velhari Council, reading it in their great hall, went very quiet for a long time. Then the eldest counselor, a woman of 300 years, said softly, "They have not yet learned to be afraid of the hegemony." The youngest counselor said, "Perhaps that is the point." Leora Vex stayed aboard the unconquered Sun for 19 days while arrangements were made for the survivors. On the last morning, she found Admiral Voss at the viewport again, watching stars. "Why?" she asked. It was a child's question, honest and direct. He took a long moment. "Because you called," he finally said. "And because someone should have come for us, once, a long time ago. And nobody did." He looked down at her. "So we decided we'd be the ones who come." Leora's bioluminescence pulsed once, a Velhari expression with no direct translation. Something between "I understand" and "I will remember this." She carried it with her for the rest of her life. And the galaxy, slowly, began to understand that humanity had arrived, not with conquest, not with empire, but with something older and stranger and far more dangerous. They had arrived with the stubborn, unreasonable belief that no one should have to call twice.